Welcome to Supertalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride. Time, Professor, like a gentleman. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
In 3.
Welcome to Supertalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 123, and I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella.
I'm losing my fucking mind. I mean, that was unbelievable. You want to tell the audience what we got into a little bit? We for the first time, I think we actually are ahead of the game here, but we won't post this until the first 3 episodes are launched. But
yeah, we got a really good episode for you this week. Things have been quiet on the comic book media front due to the strikes, which we'll talk about tonight. But we had a really unique opportunity, and we're here tonight to review the first 2 episodes of the new Gen V series coming out on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
By the time this episode is available to you, I'm hopeful that it has already been released to Amazon Prime.
if not, I will say this emphatically. Spoilers. We have to talk about spoilers. So there will be a ton of spoilers in this show. So if you haven't watched it, please pause. Go check it out because you're going to want to, and then come back to us and get our take on it.
Yeah, but we had a unique opportunity last night. Amazon is doing something very, I think, unique in the industry, as well as very exciting for those of us who are kind of out, bordering on the insiders. We're not quite insiders, but we're there. I mean, we obviously have a podcast that talks about this information, but Amazon has recently been screening a lot of their premieres of movies and television shows on their Amazon Prime streaming service in theaters. And they've been offering the opportunity to go see these movies and first couple of episodes of some of the streaming series in the theaters in advance of them being released to Amazon Prime. And they have done this with a few projects, and they are continuing to do this going forward. And we had the opportunity. I was able to score some tickets, and we got to see the first 2 episodes of Gen V in the theater last night. And we'll get into it, but it was awesome. So we're going to talk about it all tonight. But
Awesome.
a really great opportunity for us, and we're happy to share it with you. And hey, we got a very time. Normally, our reviews lag behind a day or 2 from when these things premiere on the streaming services, because we have to have a chance to watch them and digest it and talk about it on the show. But it seems like this episode will be coming out the day that this gets released to Amazon, which is great.
Yeah, which is unusual. I mean, it's not like we have a seat at the big table. We're still at the kid table in the back of the party. But, it's an unusual situation, and we're going to make the best of it.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get started with the show. And before we get started, we always like to thank the listeners that bring the show to you. And these are our patrons, patreon.com/supertalk. If you want to become a member of the patronship, it really doesn't cost a lot. It's like $1 every time we come out with one of these episodes, which now is like once every, a month or something. No,
Yeah.
We're doing like every week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. But, hey, if you want to support the show directly, join the patronship. Patreon.com/Supertalk is how you support us directly.
Absolutely. Please do, and thank you. We're going to ramp things back up once the action.
Well, now we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I mean, over the next, I'd say, 9 weeks, we're going to be pretty regular doing weekly shows.
Through the end of the year, I think we're pretty set.
Yeah, at least through like mid-December, we're going to be good. So, all right. As far as the review section, we're going to push that to our topic of the week. We're obviously going to be reviewing Gen V for our review section, but there is a bit of news, not too much this week that I wanted to get into, but there is a bit of news, and it's pretty big news. Look, we've been talking about the 2 prominent strikes that have been massive delays across the Hollywood industry here for the better part of 3 months now, and that's the Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild have both been on strike for the better part of 3 months, and it's really put a kind of a halt to everything going on in Hollywood. Everybody out there who's listening and watching, you probably are aware that your favorite network television shows have yet to premiere on the
That's
networks.
Right. Yeah.
And we know about some movie delays that have already been announced and others that are coming, and which we'll kind of allude to here a little bit. But good news out there in Hollywood land. It seems, though, and it's been announced officially, that the Writers Guild has come to an agreement with the studios, and they've settled the contract dispute, and the strike is over, and the writers are going back to work. We don't yet know the details of the
no details,
yeah.
But we do know that an agreement has been laid out on the table. I think the Writers Guild voted on it, and I think it is coming to an end. I do think now they're in cohorts with the actors, so they're on the strike line still with the actors. And from what I hear, Monday, today is Thursday, Monday, the actors, negotiators, and the studio negotiators are getting together. So we might hear some really good news next week.
Yeah, story is both the Writers and the Screen Actors Guild had very similar requests that they had made to the studios,
especially with the industry changing, with streaming so heavily involved now.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's about streaming services, residuals, all kinds of other things. Typically, and again, we don't know the entire details, but typically when an actor films a television series, they're paid a salary. When they film a movie, they're paid a salary, and then streaming services have really changed things now, because we're seeing that streaming services are making money on this entity premiering on that streaming service, but then there is a substantial amount of residual value that series or movie has on that streaming service over time, and I think they're looking to get a little bit bigger piece of that pie. Yeah. But again, from what we hear, very similar ask from the Screen Actors Guild and the writers. And now that the studios have negotiated terms with the writers, it seems though they'll be able to negotiate very similar terms with the actors. And I would venture to guess that strike will probably be ending sometime in the next couple of weeks. And everybody will get back to work, thankfully.
What I'm fascinated to hear and to know is how they agreed upon the usage of AI. I think that's super important. Some of the things that we were hearing, which could be smear campaigns from the actors to the studios or the writers to the studios, but to see really what they agreed upon and what they came up with is what I'm really fascinated about. There was all kinds of rumors out there that they were going to, if you went in for a shoot and you were an actor and you were a background actor, and these are who we're really talking about. We're not talking about the superstars,
the A-listers, right?
Yeah, we're not talking about A-listers. They do fine. It's the other actors that are making a career out of this and are waiting tables just to supplement their income.
Stunt doubles and
no question.
Yeah.
It's those actors that we're talking about, and they had apparently put out there that AI could basically take their image in one background scene, maybe a line or two, but take their image and use it throughout the production of that film in multiple locations without them getting paid. So basically their image being used, which is...
They could be on screen for an hour, and that hour's worth of footage could be used to place that person in other scenes down the road. Right?
Background scenes,
right.
You walking
extras,
across the street, extras. They really would minimize their costs by not having to pay so many extras because they could use AI to fill that void. And that's what I'm really interested to see, as well as, there was a list of things that the writers didn't want AI being involved in. And I'm on both fences. I agree that pay these people. They deserve to be paid. But you cannot handcuff technology and when it's growing as fast as it is, and when it could probably help the industry quite a bit, but it'll be interesting to see. That's what
and I think once the agreement is finalized, it will be interesting to see if the terms are released and we can kind of get some of those details, because I'm very interested to hear what the asks were from both sides, right. and what who ultimately relented and said, hey, we're willing to give up on this, and kind of where the middle ground was met. And look, hopefully this gives us a few more years before we're at this point again. It would just have to be just like the perfect storm where both the writers and the actors, contracts, came up to at the end at the same time. And boy, are we going to be feeling these impacts? And I do want to get into that a little bit. you and I were out earlier this evening, and you were crushing it at trivia tonight, and
A deer in headlights.
we were kind of just thinking, what do we want to talk about this evening, and kind of saw, there's some rumors out there about the impacts that these strikes are having on the industry.
And they're going to.
We knew that. We've talked about that for weeks now, that we're going to see delays. It's going to happen.
For 3 months, 4 months?
Right. Well, we know that the major project that was actively filming, actively in production, next on the slate for Marvel was Deadpool 3. And they told us when the strikes happened that they could be out of commission for, 90 days? And they said that they could, be fine.
We blew past that deadline.
And it's 3 months now. So, look, this movie was originally slated to be released in May. And the rumor now, so Disney just recently, a few days ago, just updated their movie release schedule all the way through June of next year. And Deadpool is not on that schedule.
Right.
No official announcement about Deadpool. No official announcement about when it's been delayed to, or what the date it's going to be released.
Possibly 2025.
Yeah. So originally, people forget that this movie was slated for November of next year, November of 2024. It was moved up, actually leapfrogged from the November date. When they moved Blade into the November date, they moved Deadpool up to May. And they ramped up production. And they said, yes, we can do that. And now it seems like they're not going to be able to do that. And again, we know how ambitious this movie is with all the cameos and the storylines and the impacts it's going to have on the MCU and putting to bed the Fox universe and all these other things. Again, rumors, and these are just rumors right now, no official announcement from Marvel, that this movie is likely to be delayed until 2025 now. My heart is sinking. I am aching.
Yeah.
Look, I think worst case scenario, we were hoping for a bump where Deadpool would move from the May slot to the June slot that's currently occupied by Captain America 4. Captain America would move into the November time slot. Blade would move into the February time slot. Fantastic Four would come after that. That's what my hope was, right? That maybe we get a bump. Hey, we won't have anything new until June. Now, it's highly looking like we know Captain America 4 finished principal production before the strikes occurred. So they're much further along than Deadpool was. And the directors and Ryan Reynolds have come out and said, we still have a lot of filming to do.
Yeah.
So they were nowhere done with principal photography. For this to be pushed to 2025, the two questions I have is, well, first, I'm, again, heartbroken if that is the case, because this is probably the one movie I'm most looking forward to that's on the Marvel slate over the next couple of years. Most looking forward to, for lots of different reasons.
I thought it was the Marvels.
Yeah, that's a movie destined to fail, and we'll kind of talk about that one. But I was looking forward to this movie the most, and the impact that this was going to have on the MCU and the multiverse saga, and kind of how it was going to shake things up. We know the TVA is involved and everything else, and Loki season 2, which is premiering here in another week and a half, is basically going to be feeding into this movie. And now we're getting that even pushed back further. I'm really setting myself up. I'm waiting to hear really bad news across the board in regards to the movies that we know and love.
Let me get your thoughts on this. Could this be a product of maybe some of the new restrictions for the writers' agreement that they have to take into consideration? Could this be maybe some of the new outlined restrictions or requirements for the actors' new agreement, writers and actors' new agreement? And more importantly, could this be, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but could this be some way affecting, we all know the
result of
the results of the special effects from Marvel have
the
unionized.
VFX artists,
The VFX artists, they have unionized, which would give a longer time frame, obviously, for them to finish projects, not as much pressure, more time. So if Deadpool was slated to finish their CGI, their special effects in a 3-month time period, could they have added 3 more months onto that? I would say that's aggressive, doubling it, but at least 2 more. So instead of a 3-month time period, it's a 5-month time period.
Yeah.
And we could be looking at all those factors. Those 3 things could be factors in the fact that they're being delayed.
We are clearly biased towards the movies that we're talking about on this show and the comic book media realm, right? The Marvel and DC properties that are, that we're talking about on the show. These strikes are having broad sweeping effects across all of Hollywood.
No question.
Now, to your point, these movies are highly dependent on VFX, which does have another layer of complexity to it, whereas if you're doing a Oscar-worthy film, you're not looking for virtual effects to kind of play a big role in that, right? I'm just bracing myself, and I don't know when it's going to come, and I don't know in what form or fashion it's going to come. We heard nothing at Comic-Con this year, nothing at D23 this year. That was just a bust. I don't know how or when we're going to get these announcements. I do think they're going to be slid under the rug, just kind of like a small press release, and it's going to be hidden in something. I don't anticipate Kevin Feige coming out and making any broad sweeping announcements. I think the earliest we might hear anything from him would be around the premiere of the Marvels movie. And at this point in time, I do feel that the actors' strike will be over by the time that movie premieres in November.
Yeah, these rumors about pushbacks, let's not put any weight on them until this actor strike's over and we get an official word. So don't get your heart rate.
But what I'm saying is, if we do ultimately have a premiere for that movie, a Hollywood premiere with a red carpet, because the actor strike is officially over, we'll get Kevin Feige on the red carpet and maybe some, look, unfortunately or fortunately, and we've seen them all, we've watched them all, these red carpets are not, big-time Hollywood journalists asking the tough questions. These are like softballs being tossed out by Marvel-paid people that are there for the red carpet, right? Sure. So I don't know if we're going to get those tough questions asked.
Hollywood insiders that are slid information for their cooperation.
I do hope that maybe somebody like the Hollywood Reporter or Empire Magazine or somebody that's out there that really cares about breaking a story, asking Kevin Feige the tough question on a red carpet. I would hope. I would hope, and
cross our fingers. Well, we'll stay tuned. We'll bring you the latest.
Good news is we're kind of on the road to recovery, right? It's like, but we have a long way to go, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, we'll deal with what we have while we have it, and if there's a long-term lull and release of content, we'll just deal with it the way that we deal with it on the show.
Hey, right now Amazon Prime is kicking ass. Who needs Marvel or DC?
I'm gonna tell you, Titanium. I mean, think about this. We have Gen V.
We got Loki.
Then we have Loki season 2.
Yep.
Then we have Invincible.
Yep.
And then we have the Marvels, which we're all really excited about.
Yeah.
And then Aquaman ultimately, but. And again, some rumors about some other things being dropped on Disney Plus by the end of the year as well. We heard X-Men 97 potentially. What if season 2 potentially? Things might come down the road that we're not aware of. And again, that's one of the beauties of some of these animated features like Invincible and What if season 2 / X-Men 97. The voice work was done. So typically when those animated features are done, the voice work is done first. And then they animate the cells after the fact. Right, so they bring the voice actors in for all the dialogue and do everything in advance. So all that stuff was recorded well in advance of these strikes.
Yeah.
So now it's just about animating those cells, right? And therefore, we can get those. And I think some of those rumors we heard several weeks back about X-Men 97 and What If Season 2 coming out earlier than we expected, I lend some credence to that because it's not as difficult for them to. You don't have to bring actors out on the red carpet for an animated feature, right? It's like, you're just doing, releasing that to the streaming service. I think we might get those. And
I hope so. I hope
that would be really good filler. And again, whether we get Echo or not, again, that was a rumor that was going to be released in its entirety by the end of the year. That may be pushed now. And there may be reasons behind that. I think they wanted that to kind of feed into Daredevil Born Again, which has obviously been pushed because they were in the middle of production when the strikes hit. So
just starting it, just a couple film days.
Yeah.
You want to hear a crazy fucking theory that I heard?
Oh, I'd love to.
Somebody out there is saying that Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, is going to do very well. And I was like, you're out of your fucking mind. But then the reasoning, and sorry for not giving kudos to whose theory this is, because I can't remember, but it's on the top of my head. The theory is that the time frame in which that movie comes out, there's a huge lull.
There's nothing coming out.
Nothing coming
because
out.
Because we know Dune got
Correct.
pushed to next year.
So
right?
that's part of his theory.
And it's holiday season.
And it's the holiday season. There's a couple of, like, some of the shit after I was reading his list of, like,
all the movies coming
data
out.
Points of, well, it's nothing. That was a big one, that nothing is going to be there during that time period in the theaters. And there was, like, these things. I was like, wait a minute. Damn, that makes sense. Maybe it will kick ass, at least in the box office. Critics, reviews, that's another thing. But at least in the box office, maybe it might do decent because of that.
Well, think about it, Titanium. How often have you gone to see a movie on Christmas Day or around the holiday time just because there's nothing better
Growing
to
up,
do?
that was a tradition in my house.
But just because there's nothing better to do. And you'll go see something just because it's out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because you want to see it. And I guarantee you, there's a lot of people in my household that would not be interested in seeing that movie normally. And they're going to go see that movie because there's nothing else to do.
I think one year we saw this movie called Holiday Nuts or something. It was so bad. I think that was because it was the only movie out there. So that theory is out there. It's interesting. I just thought it was noteworthy
to
mention.
Well, I mean, there's no question that Avatar: Way of Water did as well as it did last year because it got that
all the
8-week, just
all the other studios went running scared,
but owned the theaters for. I mean, it was playing in 3, 4 screens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you know what? If people are paying to go see Aquaman in the theaters will keep playing it because they're there for the dollar. I mean, that's how they keep themselves open and running, right? All right. Well, let's move on to our topic of the week this week. Brought to us by our friends at Studio GG Studios. Home of the Man Band, Corn on the Cob.
Corn on the Cob.
What's the latest with Goat? Is he back home yet?
He's back home. Yeah,
okay.
The cross-country trip has ended. He's back home. He's in the studio with the band. Working, jamming, working out on new content, building new content.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I'm glad he got home safe because I know that was quite the journey that he made cross country there. Thank you, Studio G, for all the work you do for us. All right, let's get into our topic of the week, which is
spoilers.
Yes,
spoilers.
Our review of Gen V. And before we get started, we kind of alluded to at the beginning of the show, and you and I were talking about this last night when we went. I think this marketing effort by Amazon is brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Brilliant. And here's what they've done. Every property that they're now releasing to Amazon Prime, and I mean every property, every movie, I never looked it up, but the astronaut movie that came out here recently.
Pena was in.
Yeah, Michael Pena's astronaut movie came out on Amazon Prime. About a migrant farm worker becoming an astronaut. Really great project. That was available in the theaters 2 days before it came on Amazon Prime. They are now premiering Gen V 2 days before it comes out on Amazon Prime in the theater. We saw previews last night for
Jamie Foxx, Tommy Lee Curtis's new show. I think
called The Burial.
Something
The
like
Burial.
That. The Burial.
Yeah. New project with Tommy Lee Jones and Jamie Foxx. They were promoting. We're going to be doing a theater premiere for this project that's coming out on Amazon Prime. I think it does several things. One, it gets the theaters interested in non-theater specific content. Great for the theaters. The theaters were happy to have us there last night.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we got tickets to the show and we got a voucher for a small popcorn and a small drink or whatever. And these are all courtesy of Amazon, I would believe. But we're there at the theater. We get exposed to the theater. Theaters are interested. It was a Wednesday night. They're happy to show one screen. Who cares, right? It's fantastic. It gets people like you and I excited about a property that's coming to a streaming service. They were encouraging you to post on social media, to post a review, non-spoiler review on IMDb. They're promoting that in the screens on the theater. Do these things. So it gets the hype, it gets the buzz out there in the
Giving
industry.
you all the hashtags to use. It was amazing.
So I think this is brilliant on their part. And frankly, if I could watch the entire season of Gen V in a movie theater, I would.
I'd sit through it, yeah.
No, I'm just saying, if 2 episodes at a time, I'd go every week to see 2 episodes at a time in a theater, because the experience of watching it on the big screen with the sound system and everything, it was fantastic.
Spectacular.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amazon, for doing what you're doing, because I think it's brilliant. I think it's worth the effort. They had a guy sitting outside of the theater asking for opinions. What do you think of the show? You know, give us some feedback and comments. He was writing all this stuff down. I think it's awesome. As a matter of fact, I think the other streaming services like Netflix, like Disney Plus, like Paramount Plus, they could do the same thing. It just gets people excited about their properties before the premiere on their streaming service.
Especially Disney Plus. They need to think out of the box, not only to get new subscribers, but to push their content. They don't really have a lot of new content. Netflix is probably the number one streaming source for new content. They come up with original content, new content all the time. But Amazon Prime, Apple, they're getting up there, and it's a great out of the box kind of promotional marketing hook.
Let's be honest. The large majority of us that were there last night are already subscribers.
Yep.
We know what we're going to see.
Yep.
But let's just say 10% of the people in that theater were not subscribers to Amazon Prime. Do you think that they're more likely to subscribe to Amazon Prime to see the rest of the series now that they've seen the first 2 episodes?
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for those people who didn't go to this premiere and are now hearing about it, you're obviously getting the buzz out there early. They really wanted us talking about this, and I'm glad we're doing a spoiler review on the day it comes out so we can kind of talk about everything. But even if we had done this a week in advance and did a non-spoiler review, we're getting the word out. Yeah. We're getting people excited about it. And from what we saw last night, I want to get people excited about this.
I posted about it immediately, obviously with the hashtags that they gave us, and just a must-see. And I told the guy, my comment to the person that was asking questions at the end, I said, that first episode beginning was as striking, had just as much shock value, and was so insane and intense as the first 20 minutes of season 1, episode 1 of The Boys.
Right. And so let's go back and remember what in season 1 episode of The Boys, we had 2 things that occurred within the first 5 minutes of the show. We had Homelander and Maeve fighting crime in middle of downtown, and you kind of got an interaction between the two of them, and they were like thwarting a robbery or something, and Homelander just like throws some guy up in the air and he lands on a car down the street or whatever it was. And then literally like 3 minutes later, Huey's talking to his girlfriend on the side of the street, and A-Train runs by, and basically he's holding their hands in his hands, and that was the beginning of the episode. Yeah. And that was shocking.
Runs right through,
explodes. Yeah.
Explodes his girlfriend by running at supersonic speeds right through her, and all that's left is his hands. That was just no one saw that coming.
No. And then shocking. And the first 5 minutes of this show were as shocking and tells you everything you need to know about the show in the first 5 minutes.
Let's not tell people what it is. Let's just...
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to let people consume. What we'll say is it really kind of gives you the origin.
Again, spoilers.
The first 5 minutes gives you the origin of the main protagonist of the show, Marie.
Yeah.
And how she gets her powers and what happens when she first gets her powers. And if there's any doubt in your mind, is this show going to be as shocking as The Boys? Is it going to be as graphic as The Boys? Is it going to be as gruesome as The Boys? Is it going to be as violent? When you see that first 5 minutes, there was no doubt in my mind. I'm like, okay, we're this is it.
By the way, I think we can talk about what her powers are. Her powers are blood manipulation. She can weaponize blood and control blood. Eventually, she learns to control it in other people's body. but she can control blood and even weaponize it.
So imagine if you had like telekinesis, you could like move things with your mind. But imagine you could only do it with blood.
Right.
It's like she can control blood. Like basically,
right.
And she shows off her powers several times in the show. She actually carries a pocket knife around with her because the way she manipulates her powers traditionally is to cut herself on her hands so that her blood can come out, and she can like make her blood come out and latch onto things and strike things and do
create
crazy
weapons
stuff
and swords and darts with blood. They weaponize it. They become projectiles. Or grab things and throw them against the wall. It's extremely bizarre and unique. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. So we mentioned this before last week in our last episode. This is a new series.
Yeah.
So The Boys is based on a comic book series that's out there. There are many stories, many editions of the comic book that the television show is drawing from. This is a brand new series with brand new characters that are not in the comic books that Amazon created as an offshoot of The Boys television series and The Boys comic books.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Oh.
Which is what I told the guy afterwards. I said, look, for them to develop these new characters and this new storyline from material that doesn't exist is just brilliant.
Exactly what you told him. Yeah, awesome. And it's based around a university of superheroes where they based this university of superheroes. They teach these guys, girls and guys, how to be superheroes in crime fighting.
There's two schools.
Yeah.
There's the school of crime fighting and the school of performing arts.
Right.
And they recruit these
under one university.
Yeah, Gen V, I don't call them mutants, but Gen V soups, right? They're soups. Most of these kids, so they're of college age. Mm-hmm. They have to apply to the university.
Yes.
And based on their power sets, they're granted access. And Marie applies to the university and is granted access in. She's really excited because it's an opportunity for her to kind of make her life better. I won't go into why, which we don't want to spoil. We want to leave that as kind of the surprise.
Yeah.
But she gets into the university, but they're all like incoming freshmen, right? So if you were a senior in high school, you get into Godolphin University, God you, and it's a Vought run university. So Vought is running this college.
Yes.
They are recruiting these kids into this school
to groom them to be superheroes so that they can sell them to major cities and regions to protect those regions. So it's a business. It's a business.
Again, two schools, School of Crime Fighting and School of Performing Arts. So the kids that make it into the School of Crime Fighting are going to become superheroes, and Vought will sell them, and that they talk about this, that if you're lucky, you get hired by a city, and that you're now the hero for that city. And Vought gets paid by the city to have a hero in residence in that city. And that's what these kids in the crime fighting school are trying to become, is a hero that can work in a city.
Ultimately, you want to be on the 7, which is the 7 most popular, strongest superheroes. But that is nationwide. That is the 7 kind of take over, and they kind of are the top creme de la creme of all superheroes.
And we found out in the beginning of the television show, we find out that A-Train is a graduate of Godolphin University and was recruited into the 7 as a graduate of a Godolphin University. Right. So he was one of the first, not the only ones, but one of the first, was the first African-American on the 7, but one of the first Godolphin University graduates to become part of the 7.
Well, so Black Noir actually was the first African-American that we found out in the way.
Are we sure he's African-American?
Pretty sure, yeah. He was African-American when he became Black Noir.
Well, I'm just saying, A-Train says he's the first African-American on the
Well, because no one knows that Black Noir was an African-American.
We don't know that.
But who was the other one that came from there?
It wasn't Starlight. It was the Deep. The Deep was
the other one.
The Deep was also from Godolphin University. But so we find that out that's obviously the ultimate aspiration is as a graduate you get to go into the 7, right?
And we're simplifying it. It's not that simple. There's obviously some nefarious things going on
but
at this university.
There is a ranking system at the school.
Yes.
And one of the things, and so there's a clear division between the School of Crime Fighting and the School of Performing Arts. The crime fighting school is the school everybody wants to be in. It means you're one of the best at the school, and you have superpowers that can fight crime. The performing arts people are just people that they make movies, they make television shows, they use their abilities or powers to kind of entertain people.
Right.
And that is a business for Vought as well.
Right.
But it's seen as it's a step down. It's a much less desirable position.
Well, also that school is very important because that's where they teach the kids about social media and how to market yourself and how to do shows and how to be entertaining and have YouTubes. The way they have integrated social media in today's world of what's happening with YouTube shows and clicks and likes and followers, that's one of the biggest things. The status of a superhero at this university is calculated on how many followers you have.
It's how the 7 is measured
Right.
as well, right? I mean, social media and your perception in social media is
Right.
a big part of this. And
how many people like you, how many people follow you.
that's actually one of Marie's downfalls is she joins the university and nobody's heard of her. Nobody knows anything about her. She's not
She doesn't have a phone.
She's not a big participant in social media. And people are like, who are you? And what are your powers again? And
Right.
But again, there's a ranking system at the school, and every one of the students is ranked. And if you're in the top 10, you're one of the best students at the school. And they actually do gladiator games, where they like go into an arena and they fight against each other and see who's the best at whatever. And one of the individuals that we've seen in the trailers is a character, Golden Boy, who is played by actually
Arnold Schwarzenegger's son.
Patrick Schwarzenegger plays Golden Boy in the show, and he is you could call him the Human Torch, right? He
basically superpowers,
can set himself on fire, and so each one of these characters has a special superpower. But if you have compound V in your system, you have some level of super strength. I mean, every one of the supes has a little bit of super strength. But then you have kind of your individual superpower.
Yeah, and kind of a grade of invincibility as well.
Yeah, you have durability, I would say. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so he can set himself aflame, and he can kind of use fire and all kinds of other things. But he's also very strong, and you see a fight scene early in the show where he's fighting against another guy, and he rips his arms off. And come to find out, the guy can regenerate, so they put his arms back on, and he's fine or whatever. But
gruesome.
Yeah.
Just gruesome.
But the main character in the show is a character, Marie Moreau. And again, as Titanium mentioned earlier, blood manipulation is her power. Played by an actress, Jazz Sinclair. I thought she was fantastic. Really good casting. Very pretty girl. She plays the part very well. But again, she wants to be a crime fighter. She thinks she's good enough to be a crime fighter.
And you'll find her motivations. You'll find it. We're not going to spoil that.
But she's not accepted into the crime fighting school. When she shows up at the university, she's pissed off about it. But she does thwart an escape by one of the students one night, and it gives her a little bit of notoriety of, you kind of helped us out. And all of the popular kids at the school, including Golden Boy, his girlfriend, Kate Dunlap is her name, and she's an empath. Yeah. So if she touches you, she can basically get you to do anything that she wants you to.
Yeah, she can persuade you to believe whatever she wants, yeah.
At one point in time, she touches one guy, she says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go down to Dick's Sporting Goods and get a really big baseball bat. And I want you to bring it back here. And then I want you to hit yourself in the nuts on the hour, every hour. And then I want you to say Jumanji when you hit yourself in the nuts. And at one point in time, we see in the corner of the screens a guy over there knocking himself in the nuts with a baseball bat. Says, Jumanji!
Yeah. It does take a toll on her, though. Every time she uses her body, at that point when she did that guy, she had some blood in her eye, which means... every time she uses her body, it kind of drains
her body.
Yeah, I mean, whenever she uses her powers, we haven't seen her use her body yet. But talk about graphic. We did see a lot of graphics.
But she wears gloves, very similar to how Rogue would. Like, she doesn't want to accidentally touch somebody, but she wants to purposely.
Rogue would either steal their power or drain their energy.
So that's Golden Boy's girlfriend. We also meet Andre, who is part of the kind of group of popular kids. He has telekinesis, so he can move things with his mind, and kind of grab things and move things with his mind. We find out that his father
has some kind of metal manipulation or magnet manipulation.
Yeah, we don't really know the extent of his powers yet, but we find out
everything that he did was kind of with metal.
We find out that his father is a superhero or was a superhero, Polaris. Mm-hmm. So it makes you think it's maybe magnetism or something like that. But we find out his dad was very instrumental in him getting into the school and is very invested in his success. And
not very popular superhero, his dad, but did make a living being a superhero.
Right. And all of these kids, most of their parents gave them Compound V when they were children, which kind of helped them get their powers. Obviously, self-experimentation, that type of thing. And the other one is Jordan Lee. So Jordan Lee is an interesting character. We find out he is the TA for the professor at the school, Professor Brinkerhoff. Played by Clancy Brown, who's a fantastic actor, but he has very interesting powers. She has a layer of invulnerability and super strength,
big time super strength
and invulnerability.
I think energy blasts from her fists.
So one of the most unique powers, she can switch between a man and a woman. So several times in the episodes, she goes back and forth between being a female and a male, and there's two different actors playing this character.
Yeah.
And it seems like the female has the kind of the kind of physical energy push, and the male has the invulnerability powers. Right. It's kind of really interesting, but she is a little ostracized by Vought because they don't feel that America will grasp on to a bigender superhero.
Right.
And she, funny enough, bigender. I mean, I love the way that the show's done this. We know that bigender or gender neutral individuals or whatever is something kind of people are trying to become more aware of this. Well, the way they do it in the show is, I'm actually both genders. I'm a male and a female. Yeah. It's pretty interesting that they chose to do that. But that popular group recruits Marie. They invite her into their kind of inner circle. She goes out to dinner with them one night and parties with them or whatever. And things kind of go a little crazy.
Yeah, nuts.
Yeah. That first episode, I'm going to say the first episode was awesome.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Well, what about Emma? You didn't talk about Emma. Marie's roommate, Emma.
So Emma, she is a like an Ant-Man type of character, can shrink herself.
They call her Little Cricket.
So she has a YouTube page called Fun Time with Little Cricket.
Yeah. And
she shrinks down and films herself like wrestling her pet hamster and doing like little crazy things. And she has this big YouTube channel and YouTube followers. She's hysterical. She's a really good character, great personality.
Great actress.
Latches on to Marie when they first get to school, and they're kind of like bosom buddies and your roommates. She's great, but she knows she's not good enough to be a superhero. But she kind of is glamming on to what Marie's doing, saying, "Hey, bring me along," all these other things. But
she wants to be in the popular crowd, but she's definitely in the theater side, like YouTube show, have her own show, can work in that realm, and is very good at it. But she's comic relief for sure. She's awesome. She steals the scene every time she's on screen.
Yeah, she's great. And
she's really good.
We find out interestingly during a very, I'll say, she ends up a guy who was a big fan of her YouTube page. She ends up hooking up with this guy, and he has some interesting requests of her. And again, I won't spoil that because it's a good kind of surprise for the show. We find out she has to purge herself to shrink down.
So every time she throws up, she shrinks a little bit, or majority.
The only way she can shrink is to throw up.
To throw up.
So she has to go in the bathroom and basically make herself throw up, and it shrinks her down. And And then she has to do it more if she wants to shrink down even smaller.
Yeah, the more she throws up, the smaller she gets. So it's kind of disturbing, but how unusual. What a crazy. And she's hooking up with this guy. He has an unusual request. And let's just say this. If small children are in the room, you want them to leave. And do not watch this with your daughters or family members unless you feel very comfortable with the human body on screen, because it is shocking. What was the episode in The Boys? Herogasm?
Yeah.
Remember how crazy, batshit crazy that Herogasm is? This is a little snippet of that. It's batshit crazy.
Oh my god, they do
the
not
chick
pull.
sitting next to me was vibrating. I don't know what she was doing, but during that scene, she was literally vibrating. I don't know if she was giggling, laughing, or if she had a device or something. I don't know what the fuck she was doing, but she was literally vibrating, and I was like, "Holy cow, what's going on?" I'm hoping she was giggling, but maybe she wasn't. But it is a very erotic scene, to say the least. And
they don't pull any punches.
No, they don't.
Say.
No, they don't.
But anyway, I do want to kind of talk about the end of the first episode, because we find out some very interesting things. We know Golden Boy admits that he has a troubled past, and he mentions that his brother is dead, and you can tell it's disturbed him. And we also find out that he has been recruited into the Seven, and Professor Brinkerhoff is incredibly proud of him. You know, he's the number one student at the school, and you know they're making a special suit for him. So one of the things you've seen in the trailers is that when he flames on, it burns all of his clothes off, and so basically he ends up naked every time he uses his powers.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of
by the delight of the female students.
Yeah, he's kind of just come to grips with it at this point in time. But they're making him a special suit that will not burn up when he flames on, and they're like, you're being recruited in the Seven, and the suit costs a few $100,000, but they're building it for you because you've made it.
Right.
And the professor's very proud of him. Well, then near the end of the episode, we see Golden Boy go in, and again, spoiler for those of you that can watch, and he ends up killing the professor. He kind of hugs him and flames on and basically burns him to death.
He's having this voice in his head, and he feels like
he's having nightmares, right?
Nightmares, yeah. About the woods.
The woods.
The woods, that's what it's called. And you'll find out what the woods are later. We won't spoil that either, but again, there is something nefarious going on at this university, and it has to do with the woods and some other students. And his brother, he's hearing these voices from his brother, and it's kind of driving him crazy. And I think he's starting to figure out what's going on. But anyway, yeah, you're right. He kills the professor. Shocking. No one's safe in this fucking
Marie was going to be expelled from the university. She comes in to confront the professor and sees Golden Boy killing him. And Golden Boy goes on a little rampage, tries to chase down Marie, and then Jordan actually intercedes and says, "I've got this." And the two of them have a pretty knockdown, drag-out battle.
Pretty insane fight.
Pretty intense. And Golden Boy, when confronted by everybody, and everybody like filming him and his rampage, kind of just.
And Andre goes up to him and kind of calms him down.
Who's his best friend,
yeah, right? And they have told each other they love each other, and he hugs him and he says, it's inside your father. And he literally says, I just can't do this anymore. And he blasts up in flame like the Human Torch. He flies up in flame, and he gets so hot he explodes. Crazy. So we lose Golden Boy
in the first episode.
The first fucking episode, and I thought he was going to be the star. Now, granted, we did see him in the second episode in flashbacks, and I think we're going to see him in the third episode in some flashbacks. But crazy. Just no one's safe in these shows.
Yeah, so and that's the end of the first episode, and the second episode was very much kind of the repercussions of what happened then. We find out that Marie is very much now the new school favorite, because Vought wants her to become very popular because she's pretty, and she's popular for saving somebody, and you'll find out how she saved somebody at some point in time. But she's now in the top 10, the first freshman who's ever been ranked in the top 10. And
African American first freshman, yeah.
Right, and so they want her to do interviews and do press, and now Andre's the number one ranked person at the school because Golden Boy's dead.
Andre
now.
and Marie get credit for handling what the spin is, and you know how Vought loves the spin shit. Golden Boy went psychotic and crazy, and Andre
he was doing
and Marie,
drugs.
Yeah, drugs or whatever. And Andre and Marie were containing him and saved a lot of lives by not letting him get out of control.
But it was really Jordan.
It was really Jordan, yeah.
And Marie's confronted with, do I
tell the truth?
Tell the truth of actually what happened, or do I go by the script that Vaught's given me on this
Ride
interview?
the wave of popularity to get what she wants.
Right. And we get a little bit, another scene with Emma. She's in her performing arts school, and, she has to do scenes with people, and there's kind of another student in there who's one of the popular girls, kind of latches onto her, but we find out she's got ulterior motives as well. But I thought the second episode was a little bit more filler episode, but
still really good.
Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah.
Titanium, we won't go into all the details about everything quite yet, but I just think in general, we described this a couple of weeks ago. Again, when Game of Thrones was the most popular show on HBO streaming network or whatever it was, everybody was talking about it. It was the most popular show out there, and it's all anybody could talk about. And then House of Dragon was coming out, and people were like, oh, it'll never be as good as Game of Thrones. And House of Dragon came out, and they're like, wow, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We're like, well, this could be the House of Dragon to the boys.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, for the first two episodes, this show is awesome.
On par or better than The Boys.
I think The Boys I would put a little notch above, just because of the character development that we've gotten so far with all of the Seven and The Boys and Butcher and all those. I think that's a little bit higher right now. But
how many college kids are going to resonate with these? And once it
my son can't wait for this to come out tomorrow.
Neither can my kids. They're like, we love The Boys. We thought The Boys was awesome. Now it's about college-age students in a university where we're at. I mean, it's going to resonate with them, and nothing spreads like wildfire than a college campus or through that generation. It will be all over.
I think this is going to be
very popular.
Extremely popular. I think everybody's going to be talking about it.
A bunch of old fucks like us loved it.
Yeah. I mean, I knew this was going to be good. I had a very good feeling this was going to be good.
Yeah.
But I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it.
Blown away.
And I am now very much looking forward to seeing the rest of the season. Again, from what we understand, it's premiering on Amazon Prime. We believe, I've heard this, they're releasing the first 3 episodes tomorrow. So we saw the first 2 in the theater.
Right.
I mean, I'm excited now. I get to watch a new episode tomorrow because I didn't see episode 3.
September 29th, right?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yes.
Or,
Friday.
or today when this podcast comes out. September 29th, Friday.
September 29th, Friday. Go check it out. The first 3 episodes. I can't wait to see episode 3. I'm going to watch all 3 episodes.
I don't know if it's 6 or 8 episodes.
It's 8.
It's 8 episodes,
definitely
right?
8,
So we're going to be getting this for the next 5 weeks, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So, look, we'll be talking about this every week for the next few weeks. This is what we'll be reviewing. And obviously, when Loki comes out next week, we'll be adding that into our show. So, we've got a lot to talk about, folks. And we're along for the ride because I think that compelling content on streaming services right now that are comic book media is what we have. And I'm way more excited to talk about things like this than I might be for movies that are coming out here in the near future.
Agree 100%. Hey, Professor. Great show. Let's ring the bell.
All right. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or at supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we're out. Excelente.
So much for a short show.
Black Viper. Everyone likes this game. Haters gonna hate. like